Welcome, everybody, to State of Hoops, a South Dakota basketball podcast. This is your co-host, Todd Schlekeway, with co-host Nate Malchow. Chow, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Schleck. Happy belated Thanksgiving to you and your family, and happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners out there as well. So, a lot to give thanks for, and obviously, one thing we give thanks for is South Dakota basketball, and here to celebrate that once again this episode.
Yeah, I would like to echo that. We really hope all of you out there had a great Thanksgiving. The one thing I always think about, Nate, when it comes to Thanksgiving is basketball, because college basketball has feast week. I think ESPN dubbed that term, and you have all these college games on all day and night. It just gets me excited for high school basketball. And today's episode, which we're going to get into here momentarily, is all about a primer on the upcoming South Dakota girls high school basketball season. So we're excited about that. And I know you, as a longtime successful girls coach, Chow, you every year about this time, you probably have those vibes that come your way.
Yeah, I've spent many of Thanksgiving vacations in a gym. It's kind of funny that the traditional start of girls basketball, probably over the last 20 years after it switched from fall to winter, is the girls are always starting that week of Thanksgiving. So you have your first couple practices and your roster decisions and your tryouts, and then you get a day break, and then you come back and you're able to put a lot of stuff in over the weekend and get ready for the upcoming year. But it's gotten to the point now, Schleck, that I did that for many years, but in my new role, I've been doing this for 12 years. My family looks at me now and is surprised I'm around for Thanksgiving and Christmas, because there were many years there where those you have the holiday, but you just didn't have as much family time, probably because of the practices and getting ready for the season.
Yeah, and we're going to visit on this episode with two of the best sports reporters in South Dakota, and Ryan Deal and Jason Andera. They just came off covering the fall seasons, and they've been gracious enough to join us. We're going to introduce them here momentarily. But before we do, I want to just revisit the Jason Sutherland Legends series episode. Thank you to everyone who listened and watched that episode. We heard so much great feedback, kind of a walk down memory lane to a golden era of South Dakota high school basketball and athletics. And so we were just thrilled to be able to visit with Jason. And Nate, I just wanted our listeners and viewers to be aware, since we released that episode, there was an awful situation that happened to Jason Sutherland and his family. They lost their house and their property in a fire. Now, thankfully, to put it in perspective, the family's all safe and healthy, but just a horrible situation. There was a fire where they lost their entire home and their property. So we've said from the time we started out doing this, Nate, that we want to use this podcast as a platform for good. And so I've been in touch with Jason's sister, Nikki Sutherland, who's kind of running point guard right now for the family. We want to encourage, I know you and I plan to donate. We want to encourage South Dakotans to donate. There's multiple ways to donate. I have it on screen right now. Sutherland Family Benefit Fund has been set up through First Midwest Bank in Columbia, Missouri. You can write a check to the attention of the Sutherland Family Benefit Fund, First Midwest Bank, 1411 Grindstone Plaza Drive, Columbia, Missouri, 65201. There's also an opportunity to do a ACH electronic donation as well. And so first and foremost, our thoughts and prayers are with Jason Sutherland and his family, but we encourage our listeners to chip in and help the family pick up the pieces here with a donation to the Sutherland Family Benefit Fund. We want to use our platform and our audience, and we would encourage all of you, as we kind of segue into this Christmas season, to do so. Nate, you know better than anyone, South Dakotans like to take care of our own, and we're a big sports state. We're a big basketball state, but even more than that, Chow, I think South Dakotans are very generous people.
Yeah, and we're a unique community, like you said, Schleck, that we take care of ourselves and we look out for one another. And again, thoughts out to the Sutherland family on the loss of their home. in a fire. Again, this took place in Columbia, Missouri, just a couple of days after our podcast launched with Jason. So we're thinking of the Sutherland family, and happy to offer any support that we can from our platform.
Yep. And again, it's on the screen here. If you're watching this episode, I will place this information on how to donate in the comments on our YouTube channel to both Jason's episode 4 and then this new episode. Also, please feel free to send Nate and I an email at stateofhoopspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll get you all that information privately via email as well. So thoughts and prayers are with the Sutherland family, and we encourage all of you to support them during their time of need. We are excited about today's episode of the State of Hoops podcast. We have two of the very best sports reporters to ever do it in South Dakota. They're still going strong. We have Jason Andera from SDPB Sports and Ryan Deal from 605 Sports joining us. And on today's episode, we're going to do kind of a deep dive on tipping off the South Dakota high school girls basketball season. So Jason and Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, guys.
So Nate, I'm going to start with you. You've won, like we alluded to earlier, you've won state titles. What are you thinking this time of year? You're an athletic director now, but you came up through the girls basketball coaching ranks. I know this is a special time of the year for you.
Thanksgiving time always brings back memories of getting back in a gym and getting started with practice. And really, you're going through those first couple weeks and trying to create that identity of your team with your foundational philosophies and all of that. And didn't get too long of breaks during Turkey Day back in the day, but was able to sandwich a holiday in between a lot of practice time. And then once you get past Thanksgiving, you're in December where we're at, and it's go time. So very good memories. And when this time of year comes, we know that it's basketball season. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Ryan and Jason. We're fired up to have them. We're fortunate in South Dakota to have two guys here who care about all sports, but specifically basketball we're going to be talking about today. But so excited to have them on.
Well, let's tip this thing off by starting with Class B girls, this upcoming Class B girls basketball season in South Dakota. And I think how we're going to approach this today, we're going to start by, I'd like Ryan and then Jason, give us a theme or storyline you're thinking about when it comes to Class B girls heading into this new season. Ryan?
Yeah, I'll start this one. Everybody knows Class B is, that's my wheelhouse. That's, that's what I love is the small towns, the small schools. And the last couple of years, it's just been fun because you think about a few years ago, Viborg Hurley girls kind of came out of nowhere, won the state tournament. Centerburg girls kind of came out of nowhere and won the state tournament. Last year, Bennett County girls kind of came out of nowhere, won the state tournament. So to me, it's always fun in the smaller classes. You just never know when they get to the state tournament, like who's going to come out of there and who's going to win it. And that's not a shout out to the bigger schools by any means, but to me, it's always fun when you get to the Class B, and there's always, especially the Class B girls the last couple of years, there's always a team or two that nobody talks about when they get to the state tournament and they win the thing. So I think the team is, Bennett County won it last year. They return a lot. I don't know if that means anything. So it's really going to be fun to see if one, Bennett County can, go back to back. And two, just to see who else is maybe going to have a shot to come out of, Class B. Because again, it's always, you just never know who's going to come out of there and make a run. So to me, that's kind of the theme. It's going to be fun to see kind of the parity and some different teams, potentially make a run at everything.
He said exactly what I was thinking, is that we've got so many good, freshmen and sophomores that really pop onto the scene that it's hard to tell from year to year. Just because you have a lot of seniors in Class B or in Class B girls basketball doesn't mean, you can lock it in. Like, look at Centerville last year. They had one of the best senior teams that they've had, and they were coming off a championship, and they couldn't get it done in the semis because of a young and up-and-coming team. So I agree. I think the young up-and-coming teams are the ones we're going to have to watch for. And we don't know. There's going to be a team or two that come out of nowhere, but it is going to be tough to compete with Bennett County because they're still bringing freshmen and sophomore from a team that just won it all last year. If they get better shooting the ball and play well on a tougher schedule, they're going to be really tough to deal with.
I'll say one thing about Bennett County. Don't get in a track meet with them on a basketball floor.
Exactly.
I've had a chance to work state track meet Howard Wood, and I haven't seen Bennett County in person. Seen them on video during tournament time. But like you said, a lot of great athletes on that team, and young athletes too, and kids that are doing well in multiple sports. So what a great example that they're providing, that kids can be in multiple sports and have success, and certainly a favor coming into this year.
People forget last year, Sanborn Central, Woonsocket as a team, just because they didn't win it, they made it all the way to the finals. They've got Liz Boucher back. Everybody's talking about Bennett County, but I know that they're sitting there waiting for their chance to make a big deal at state again.
And I'll say that last year, yeah, Bennett County won it, but you look at their games in the state tournament,
Yeah.
they had to get by Parkson. They had to get by, can't remember, they played in the semifinals, Centerville. And then in the championship game, that was like a 10-point game, and they're all close. So again, when you get the state tournament in any class is always fun, because it's usually the nowadays with the SODAC 16, you all got to be good to get there. So it's going to be fun once we get to the state tournament, once we see the seeding and the parents and all that stuff, to see how some of these matchups will play out.
Who are some other teams that you both have your eye on? I know, Jason, before we started the podcast, you said you spend a lot of prep time between volleyball and basketball season reaching out to coaches. Who are some of those coaches you're going to be reaching out to that you think could be poised for a big season?
Well, it's going to be an interesting year for Lyman. They've had a good team the last couple of years now, and it's been under Max Scott, and now she's a senior, and they've got some good guard play at the younger levels. I think Lyman, they've got a new coach, so that's one thing I got to figure out is how well will that transition from last year to this year with a new coach? But they're a team to watch out for. And then, there's, I think Centerville's still in the mix here just because they didn't get it done in the semis last year. I think that's a team that is hungry to get back on the stage, and they've got some really good athletes coming up as well, even though they lost a good senior class.
Ryan, anyone on your radar?
The Rapid St. Mary made it to the state tournament last year. I'm sure that they bring back plenty. Then when Tom Young's coaching, you never want to count out Ethan. I think they're going to be in the mix. And out west, Region 8B, Hardin County and Lemon, I think a couple of teams that don't get a lot of attention. And I think they got a chance if they get out of the region, get to the SODAC. Could be a tough draw for anybody. So again, Class B is always fun because there's more teams. There's going to be a team or two we're not even talking about right now that I think will sneak up on some people. So it's always fun in Class B.
One school that I've heard, just asking around a little bit, Jason, he actually does some work for SDPB Sports on the side. Coach Brad DeBeer, he took Dubrook's girls to the State B last year, and I had heard they had a really good summer. They have a lot of good returning players, so they may be a team to watch out for as well, Dubrook.
For sure. And this is Matea Gauss had a tremendous year last year for them, but it's, she's definitely a go-to type player, but it's not a one-person team. And that's what I like about Dubrook is they will reload a lot. They should be a team that has a chance to get back to the state tournament. But like Ryan said, the SODAC 16 can be such an equalizer. We'll see if they've got another run in them to the state tournament. But if they get there, they could definitely be a contender.
And then you mentioned Lyman, Jason. I believe Cody Vollmer's back as the girls coach. Cody was my rival in high school. I played for Mobridge. He played for Lyman. Good friend of mine now, friend of Nate's. And his daughter, Skylar, plays at the University of North Dakota. And so he took a year off, but I think he's back. And if I know one thing about Cody, they will compete. His intensity will be there for that Lyman team.
Well, they made a run under Cody a couple of years ago and then had some transition in the last year or so. But he knows the core of this roster. And like I said, Max Scott's going to be the star there. She's going to attract a lot of attention. But Jordan Scott is really rising up and can be a star. And they've got good ball handlers all over the backcourt. And that's hard to find in a Class B school that, you really have a good formation of a team. All the pieces are covered where you have a couple post players, a couple good wing players, and a couple really good backcourt players. And that's what Lyman has this year. Depth-wise, I don't know. That's always the issue with a lot of Class B teams. Depth-wise, what are you going to do? But they've got the pieces in place for sure.
So you both have mentioned some of the players to watch, the O'Neill sisters, Max Scott. I think I counted before the episode here, 12 of the 18 all-state players in Class B are returning. So first team, second team, third team, there's 6 players that make the teams in B and A. So in Class B, 12 of the 18 are returning. And then some of the honorable mention all-state players are returning. Anyone else that comes to your mind right away among the returnees that the fans should take a look at early on in the season?
Just think again with Bennett County, the O'Neill sisters. It's just going to be fun to watch them. It's already been fun to watch them, what they've done last year, basketball in the fall with volleyball and then track. I think you got to start with the O'Neill sisters and what they're going to be all about. And there's 3 of them now. You know, we talk about the 2 older sisters. They got a younger sister coming up. I think those are kind of some players that we should certainly talk about to start with in Class B girls.
I've seen Hazel Luthmers make a step up over the last couple of years at DeSmet, and she hasn't had a great supporting cast, but DeSmet continues to get better. And individually, Hazel Luthmers is one of those players that can control a game, you know, gets the double-doubles, can pass, can keep the team going, can shoot from the outside, and is a great presence on the inside. I think she's one that probably doesn't get as much headlines, but she could be one of the best players in the state. And another one is Addison Heinge, who was out of Wilmot last year, transferred to Wabe Summit this year. And I think that's going to help her a lot, just having some more players around her. She put up unreal numbers last year, but it was in games that, you know, where they were getting blown out or they were not competitive. So people want to see what she can do, but she's a 6-foot all-around player who's on the up and come. And so I think Addison Heinge is one that we got to get familiar with this year.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. Remember, she had like was she a freshman? She had like a 40-some point game,
Yeah, it was
game or something.
Was it 50? I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was special, and that was as a freshman. You're right.
I think one thing that stands out, like you guys were talking about, things are up for grabs and there's parity in the Bs and new teams have won it each year. 12 out of 18 All-State players are returning.
Yeah.
Good luck predicting that one.
Yeah,
With the talent that's coming out, and you know, you get out of that Sodak and you got to get hot at the right time and put together a string. That's going to be awesome to watch play out in Class B and see all those returning players, but the new up and comers that seem to come in each year that they get some headlines as well. So going to be a fun field to watch.
Yeah, we look forward to following the Class B girls basketball season in South Dakota as they tip off here. They've already started practice, so we're going to be excited to follow. We're going to transition now to 2 sponsor ads for the State of Hoops podcast. First sponsor, Charles Schwab. Looking for trusted financial guidance close to home? Visit Charles Schwab's Sioux Falls, South Dakota branch, your local investment firm. Led by Lonnie Struckman and Zach Hansen, financial consultants with over 25 years of combined experience. Their team is here to help you reach your financial goals. Whether you're planning, investing, or just have questions, Lonnie, Zach, and their team put clients first every time. Call 605-231-4844. Search Schwab Sioux Falls at schwab.com to book your appointment today. Charles Schwab, own your tomorrow.
Another sponsor we'd like to thank is Tiefenthaler Real Estate with Hague Realtors. For over 30 years, Pat and Pam Tiefenthaler of Tiefenthaler Real Estate with Hague Realtors have been trusted names in and around the Sioux Falls community. Building relationships that last, they're humbled and honored to serve buyers and sellers with care and expertise. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or navigating a move because life happens, Pat and Pam will walk beside you, guiding you every step of the way. Call Pat or Pam at Tiefenthaler Homes with Hague Realtors today. Your trusted partners in Sioux Falls. Visit tiefteam.hague.com or call 605-321-0550.
Give and go.
You're listening to the State of Hoops podcast with special guests Jason Andera from SDPB Sports and Ryan Deal from 605 Sports. All right, Jason and Ryan, we're going to have some fun. We always have a segment on our podcast called Give and Go. And the give and go question for both of you, and I've even got one for Nate with his coaching hat on. So, Jason, you first, then Ryan. I want you guys to tell us which is the best high school girls basketball game you've covered in the state of South Dakota during your time covering South Dakota sports. High school girls basketball game, doesn't matter the class. What is it?
A couple definitely come to mind, but I started at Midco Sports in, I think, 2011, 2012, right in there. And I had done some coverage before that, but that was a big year for me because I was doing my show for the first time. And I remember going to Frost Arena with the young Nate Malchow on the sideline, going up against a sophomore named Macy Miller. And that game just sticks with me because it was one of those games where I just thought Washington continued they were just going to get wiped. I mean, they'd get a 7-point deficit, a 9-point deficit, 11-point deficit, and you got Macy Miller on the other side hitting mid-range shots. And then near the end of the third quarter, I think it was, Washington came back, and they'd done that the night before, and in the semis made a big comeback. And it just felt like this group of sophomores, they had good seniors and a couple juniors, a good mix, but they had a really special group of sophomores going against the sophomore Macy Miller. And all of a sudden, Mayer starts hitting shots, Neiman starts hitting shots. Sydney Cole is getting the rebounds. I know Malchow loves rebounds, and you guys started rebounding in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, this 10-point lead comes to like 3, and then 2 big 3-pointers at the end of the game, I remember. One by Sabres for Mitchell, and then Neiman comes back and hits one for Washington to make it, I think, you'll correct me, I'm sure, but I think it was a 1 or 2-point game at that point. And then at the end, I think Macy Miller hit a couple free throws, and then Washington had a chance at the end, and it just didn't happen. So that's not a miracle game. It's not going to be one that goes in the record books, but it was one of the first important games for me to cover. And it was such good star power, and we had such good sophomore classes on both sides, So that's one for me for sure. First of all, did I get anything wrong, Nate, about the game? Maybe that's the one you're going to bring up. I don't know.
The only thing, Jason, that we got wrong is we didn't come out of there with a W in that championship game. No, a lot of fun. I remember that game, and that was the start of a Washington-Mitchell rivalry for about 3 years.
Yes.
And just a fun rivalry to be a part of with, Wes Morgan coaching Mitchell and all the great players and college athletes that were involved in that. And we had some battles, and we met up with each other in the night session plenty of times there. Warriors came up short, like you said. We were down 10 points at one time. We were down 12 points. I mean, like 3 different times. It was like double figures, but we kept clawing back and, showed a lot of heart on behalf of our kids, but also Mitchell being able to hold that off. So, yeah, fun memories when you look back at it. It hurt for a couple of years, but when you look back at it now, it was a lot of fun.
Ryan, how about you? Best game you've ever covered, high school girls?
If you'd asked me that question about 5 years ago, I would not have had a good answer. There just wasn't a lot of girls games that really stood out to me. But just a few years ago, Wall and Wolsey Wessington played in the semifinals at the Class B girls basketball tournament at the Huron Arena. Anybody that knows Class B basketball just knows the Huron Arena. It's pretty special when you get to the semifinal night. And that game was so much fun. I had to look up the score before I jumped on. It was 76-72. And for a girls game, that just goes to show you it was high scoring. It felt like towards the end of the game, I don't think the coaches were calling much for plays. It was just go out there and make some plays and have some fun. And it was just one of those special games that I look back on, and it was just so up and down and back and forth. And that was certainly a game that really stands out to me. Wall ended up winning. Next night, they lost to Viber Curley in the state championship. But to me, that game was one I'll always remember, just that girls' game between Wolsey, Wessington, and Wall. Just a really fun game, fun atmosphere. Semifinal night at the Huron Arena. That's one that will always stand out to me.
And then, Nate, you're not off the hook either. Put your coaching hat back on. And what's the best game you coached in? And I'll let you go back to your assistant days at Roosevelt if you want to with Fred Tibbetts, or as a head coach at Washington. What's the best girls game you've coached in?
Well, 2 ones, and I'll talk quick about them. I'll go back to the Roosevelt days, and this was 2005, my last year at Roosevelt as an assistant with Fred Tibbetts. We had a team that went undefeated and ran the table that year. Halla Sharping, Teresa Case, just some names that were all state players for us. But we went down, we played South Sioux City with Kelly Flynn as their head coach in the Mini Dome. And both teams, I think, ended up winning state championships that year, but probably a game that a lot of people don't know about. But we were undefeated, and we went down there and we pulled off a big win against a great South Sioux team. And anybody who's around girls basketball knows how dominant those South Sioux teams were back in the day with the Robinette sisters and you name it. They had a run, but went down there and won a hard-fought game in a unique environment. So that's one that sticks out at Roosevelt. Washington, Jason, I'll go back one game from that 2012 state tournament. In the semifinals, we played Washington played a very good Brandon Valley team, and we had some tight battles with them during the year. A tight game, packed house at Frost, loud. We had signs to hold up all of our sets and all of that because you just couldn't hear each other on the court. But we were down 34-30 against Brandon Valley, coached by Mark Statham, who had a great run there. Heidi Hoff was, I believe, who was Miss Basketball, played at USD. And in the fourth quarter, we scored 31 points, and we won 61-50. And I have never had a team that caught lightning in a bottle like that, hitting threes and big shot after big shot, and the crowd was loud, and we just ended up pulling away. And I don't think I've ever been a part of more of an exhilarating 8 minutes in basketball is that game. Sarah Zerpel, who is an assistant coach at Sioux Falls Jefferson, was a star in the fourth quarter. She probably hit 3 or 4 threes, some runners. I mean, it was unreal. And I just remember looking at my coaches and saying, what in the world just happened? And here we are. We went to the championship game where got beat the next night, but that's one that will stick out.
Well, I appreciate all of you indulging us with some of your most memorable moments, both covering girls basketball in the state and, in your case, Nate, coaching. So we appreciate you guys for walking down memory lane with us here. We're going to transition to 2 more State of Hoops podcast sponsor ads. Insight. They're the folks who helped us with the visual assets to bring this podcast to life. And I can tell you, they don't just make things look good. They dive in, ask the right questions, and come back with great ideas that actually work. Whether it's branding, campaigns, or creative strategy, Insight has a way of helping businesses stand out and connect with people in meaningful ways. If you're looking at a partner to make an impact on your business, check them out at insightmarketingdesign.com.
And are you looking for high-quality custom gear? Look no further than Park Bench Apparel, your South Dakota-owned print shop. Park Bench Apparel specializes in screen printing, embroidery, laser and UV printing, plus unique giftware for every occasion. Outfitting your company or team, they have got you covered with fully customized team stores and corporate apparel. Find Park Bench Apparel at South Dakota High School Activities Association events and follow the action on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Park Bench Apparel, wear an adventure.
All right, you're listening to the State of Hoops podcast. We're going to transition to talking a little bit now about Class A girls basketball. And Jason, we're going to start with you this time. I want both you, Jason and Ryan, to give us a theme or storyline heading into the Class A girls basketball season.
Well, the Class A has been unbelievably competitive over the last couple of years. And if last year's state tournament tells us anything, we're in for a ride. It was a heck of a state tournament in Class A last year. So, I think the theme is wipe away what happened last year, because there's going to be some contenders this year that we're not some of your perennial teams, maybe Sioux Valley, maybe some teams like that. But I really love what Makpialuta did last year too. And with Ashlyn Carlo Blunt, I know we've got Ashlyn Copo we're talking about, but with Ashlyn Carlo Blunt this year, her team could take it to another level. I think last year they really proved, got past that hump of just having a good regular season record to being a real threat to win it all. And I think this year they might be able to do something they haven't done.
I'll piggyback off of that. I just think the last year, the Class A girls championship game was honestly one of the best games, boys or girls, that our state has ever seen.
Yeah.
Just a back and forth game. I had to look at the score, so I got it right. A Sioux Falls Christian won 57-56. Anytime it's a 1-point game in the state championship, I mean, that's what it's all about. Just a great atmosphere in Spearfish last year in that championship game. Everybody knows how it plays out. Tip in basket, a rebound for the game winner. Sioux Falls Christian won. And I really think you kind of have to start with maybe those two teams again. They both return. Obviously, some solid players, some all-state caliber players from that team. Like Jason was saying, Ashton Carlo Blunt going to USD, going to be one of the better players across all classes in South Dakota girls basketball this year. And like Jason again was saying, Wagner, Ashton Kokol going to Nebraska. So those are certainly a couple of headliners as far as individuals and everything.
Class A girls is a class I followed pretty close last year. I'm from Mobridge, South Dakota. Ryan, you know that. And the Mobridge Pollock girls had a really good year. Shout out to Coach Heddick up there. They've really built the program from the ground up. and they return all but one player. And so I would expect the Lady Tigers to be in the mix again. Blake Thompson was an all-state player. Tegan Conal, Tegan's younger sister, Pacey. They got Faith Heil. They got JC Netterville. So, Ryan, I know you last year were telling people mid-season to buy stock in them, and you were proven to be right on that. And they're just one of the teams. I mean, Dakota Valley was really young, and they return a lot of those girls, I think, who just won a state volleyball championship, also in the mix.
One another team I think you got to throw out there is Hamlin.
Yep.
Again, a lot of good athletes made state volleyball just recently in the fall. And Addison Neuendorf, it's kind of a cliche, but it's like, well, it feels like she's been there forever. Well, probably because she has been there forever. She's just been such a contributor for Hamlin for just a number of years. And obviously she's her dad's a coach for the boys team. So she's been around the game, going to Northern. So she's obviously a player, and Hamlin's a team that we certainly got to talk about. And like Todd said, sometimes I'll throw out predictions out there on Twitter, and I'm usually way off. But last year I did give a shout out to the Mobridge Pollock girls, and they made it to the state tournament and had a solid showing. And like you said, Blake Thompson, state player, going to Black Hill State. I really think Mobridge Pollock is maybe a team from a statewide perspective that does not get a lot of recognition, but they're certainly a team you got to talk to.
Yeah, with Hamlin, like you mentioned, that's a team I think that's definitely going to be in the mix again this year. They had some transfers come in last year. A couple of seniors graduate. I think this year I like the mix better that they have on that team. So they're going to be, a top 5 team most of the year. But maybe we're overlooking the state champs here.
Yeah.
Sioux Falls Christian's really good. And Leslie Setzer, I think, was a freshman or sophomore last year. She was young, and she'll be back in the middle. And I think her skill set, if she gets more skilled in the post, she could become one of the dominant players in the class, in all of Class A. And they love to spread the ball around the perimeter, and it starts with defense with them. So love what Sioux Falls Christian brings back this year as well. And you mentioned Mobridge Pollock. I had a chance to watch them at the Pentagon last year and was thoroughly impressed. I think they're a team, like you said, with everybody back. And Sioux Valley's the other one with Kaylee Craddock, another D1 type player who's just continuing to evolve. She starts on defense, but she's so athletic. She's just going to have offense start to come to her naturally, and they're going to be a really good team to watch down the stretch.
Yeah, I was just looking. So 4 of the 6 Class A first-team All-State players are returning in this class. So we've already mentioned the 2 Ashlands. Then you got Taylor Reavers from Vermilion, who was a freshman point guard last year. She's really fun to watch for those of you who haven't seen her play. And then Addison Neuendorf, obviously, and Nate, you go way back with Addie's dad, Todd. That's a basketball family. Todd's probably going to listen to the podcast. So any stories about Todd, Nate?
Oh, I got a lot of stories about Newey, but Todd was our assistant coach when I was playing basketball at Aberdeen Central for 2 years, my junior and senior year, and has been a friend for many years and a confidant in the coaching fraternity. He's still continuing to coach, but we're both ADs, and we still get together and trade out of bounds plays and just do that. So I guess it never leaves you, but so fun to watch Todd and Jamie's kids play basketball and represent Hamlin, and seeing them for the last few years. So shout out to the Neuendorfs for that.
And let's go back for a second to Ashlyn Copel. I mean, probably the state's best player. Most of our listeners are aware of Mandy Copel, her aunt, who was one of the all-time greats in South Dakota. Does Wagner have some other girls back from last year's state tournament team? What's the rest of the roster look like? It's going to be fun to follow Ashlyn, not only her senior year, but as she goes to Nebraska.
Raven Medricky for Wagner, big post player. She came on strong last year for them. She's going to give them a post presence, going to give them a nice little 1-2 punch. I really think you got to, like you said, Ashlyn Coco, it's going to be fun to see how she plays. And she's always feels like she's a double-double, triple-double on some nights. Just the number she puts up is pretty phenomenal. But Raven Medricky, I really think is a player that when you talk about Wagner, you really got to talk about her as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, going back to when she was a freshman and a sophomore, she had such a good supporting cast with some of, with her older sister and a cousin on the team, and Yost was on the team, Lydia Yost. And it felt like that was one of their best chances, but she wasn't fully developed at that point. And now that she's fully developed last year, she probably had one of those teams where probably had no business making the state tournament, but because of the level she played at, she got into the state tournament. And so this year, I think having that continuity from last year, I think it's going to make them into a contender yet again this year. She is one of those special players, and she shows it off in the summer when she can shoot from the outside, but she's such a team player when she gets on the court with Wagner. She's not necessarily going to take a game over, but she's so good at everything.
Yeah.
She's so good. I think if you have a chance to go watch Ashlyn Copel, make sure you do it this year. She's fantastic.
She is getting close to 2,000 points. We should add that, Jason. You know, I really like to follow the scoring records and all that stuff, and Ashlyn Copel will get 2,000.
We always text Ryan and get the numbers from him. So he's definitely, that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I just think wrapping up the Class A girls discussion, there's going to be some very good teams who aren't going to get out of that SODAC 16 this year. It's such a deep class that seeding is going to become very important in that class, because I think 6 of the 8 teams who made the state A have the lion's share of their rosters returning. And so it's going to be a fun class to watch all seasons. Thank you both for kind of shedding some light on the Class A girls basketball season. We're going to transition into one more sponsor ad at this time, the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame. Love South Dakota hoops? Discover the legacy at the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving our state's rich basketball history for generations to come. Visit their exhibits at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls and explore stories, milestones, and legends online at www.sdbbhof.com. From iconic players and coaches to unforgettable teams, this is South Dakota basketball. All right, you're listening to the State of Hoops podcast with special guests Jason Andera and Ryan Deal. Now we're going to go to Class AA girls. Ryan, we'll go back to you. I'd like a storyline or theme Ryan and Jason are following as we enter the Class AA girls basketball season.
Well, I'll kind of say it again. You know, we talked about Class A, and I kind of said how that championship game last year was one of the best girls games that we've seen. That girls championship game last year in AA was easily as well one of the better games that in recent memories that our state has seen. Sioux Falls O'Gorman came out on top in that game. I think I just had to look up. It was 47-46. And again, anytime you get to the state championship and it's a 1-point game, that's what it's all about. Anna Valley looks like they were going to sneak that game out and beat a powerful O'Gorman team. And Ruby Moore had other plans. Obviously just went bonkers at the end there with hitting a couple threes and getting a steal and everything. So I think you really got to start with in AA. It's O'Gorman returning a lot off of that championship team. So I really think you got to start with Sioux Falls O'Gorman when you talk about AA girls.
My headline or my story to watch is, will O'Gorman lose? They haven't lost since the spring of 2023, back-to-back undefeated seasons. And I know Kent Colesrud doesn't want me to talk about O'Gorman, because every time I talk about them, he says, Jandy, you just keep us quiet. Pressure is the only thing that's gonna prevent us from getting to our potential. But he's joking. But really, will they lose? They've got a lot of talent back, got all-state players back. I mean, Brandon Valley's close. Washington's definitely getting better, but they feel like they're maybe a half step above everybody in AA this year. To me, 3 undefeated seasons in a row would be historic, and that's more in Ryan's wheelhouse with the history, but that's got to be one of the best 3-year runs that anybody's ever had.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Jason, and Ryan, I'm glad you mentioned O'Gorman, because I do think that's a big theme. Nate, I want to go to you. You know, O'Gorman's sitting at a 50-game winning streak right now. You were an assistant with Fred Tibbetts towards part of that famous Roosevelt winning streak, which is a state record. What is the philosophy as a coach, coaching staff, and do you think about it when everyone else is talking about it around you? What's your take on all that?
Well, certainly have an interesting perspective. I was on the back end of that winning streak working with Fred at Roosevelt. I got there for the Oregon tournament that they went and they won and did not lose a game there versus outstate competition. But I was there the last year of an undefeated season and then when the streak ended in 2002 as well. But I think philosophy as a coach and what you got to talk to your kids about is that, yeah, you're riding an undefeated streak, but every year's a new year. And the identity that you bring this year to the court for a team is going to be different than what was left 2 years ago. So the challenge is to approach each year as its own entity right there. Yes, people will talk about it. Yes, people will bring this up, and it is historic and a great run for Coach Kalsrud and the Knights. But as a coach, you focus on each day. What do we got to get better at? Keep it in perspective. The next game's the most important one. And what happened 2 years ago has no bearing on what our goal is for the end of the year. And I think any of these coaches will tell you their goal is to win a state championship at the end of the year.
Well said, Nate. That's very well said. It's going to take to your point earlier, Jason, it's going to take a stellar effort to beat them. And you better have guards, because if you don't have guards, O'Gorman's going to throw out Ruby Moore, Sadie Merman, Sydney Trevine, and then they return another All-State player from last year, who's Julia Aker. Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to take a great effort. Let's talk a little bit about Brandon. I know Olivia Paget, speaking of guards, she's one of the very top players in the state, and they're going to have the confidence knowing that they had O'Gorman beat in the state finals last year. What do we know about Brandon Valley?
Brandon's gotten better and better, and Ava Kellenberger and Olivia Paget have played together in that same backcourt for years. And when you have that kind of chemistry for backcourt, and then you've got the emergence of Gracie Salter, who I think took a huge step up last year as a legitimate post player as a junior. She got so much more confidence last year as a junior. She became more of an offensive threat instead of just somebody who's protecting the rim, and she can get up and down the court. Like, that's a really good place to start your team. But they've got depth as well on Brandon Valley. So on any given night, that's the type of team that could beat an O'Gorman. So going undefeated this year would be really hard. I think it's going to be really hard for O'Gorman. I think there's more contenders than we had in the last couple of years, just because the improvement of the Aberdeen Centrals and Washingtons, and even Jefferson is much better this year. I think there's more quality, legit top 5 teams than we've had in some of the past couple of years.
And December 11th, O'Gorman and Brandon Valley. First
They
game of the
early
season.
last year too. Yep.
So that'll be let's kick off girls basketball in AA with big primetime matchup like that. And again, playing the state championship game last year. So that's going to be fun to see how that plays out.
Ryan, where's that game at?
O'Gorman.
What a way to start a season.
Nate, I know you're close to the Washington program. Jamie Parrish has done a great job, state championships at multiple schools. One of my college teammates playing basketball at University of Sioux Falls, Brad Kennett, his daughter, Rylan, is a senior for Washington. And who are some of the other key players for the Warriors this year on the hardwood?
Well, you have a nice mix. You have Rylan Kennett, you have Dana Harp, who returns, who's an all-state player for us, and then some younger kids who played a lot of minutes for us last year. Josie Beitler, who will be a sophomore, Layla Birdie, and Jersey Peterson. So a mix of older and younger kids, and we're looking forward to seeing the Warriors this year. And Coach Parrish always says, he's got his famous quote that he wants to be playing his best basketball by Valentine's Day. And there's a lot of truth to that. And his teams are known to be playing their best basketball by that time and peaking at that time. So we have positive expectations for the Warriors, and I know Coach Parrish is excited for the year as well.
We saw Josie Beitler take a huge step up last year. She would have streaks where she looked like one of the best players in the state, but her consistency wasn't quite there yet. When she becomes more consistent, she is going to be one of the top players in the state, and that could be this year. And then you talked about it, just a really good starting 5. I think Jersey Peterson is ready to take another step up too. Playing on the inside, getting more rotation time, and Dana Harp, we all know, it can be one of those type of players that you can lean on as well.
One of the best games in the SODAC 16 last year was between Aberdeen Central and Jefferson. Jefferson won on a 3/4 court shot or half court shot at the buzzer. I would anticipate, you said it, Jason, but both of those teams will probably come back better than last year. Do you want to talk first about Aberdeen Central?
Yeah, I think Lauren Burkhart definitely is on the very, very short list of players to watch in Class AA this year. But Taryn Hermanson, too, just does such a solid job in the post, and it's so hard to find good posts. I think over the last few years, That's one thing that we've been missing in girls basketball is where every team has a solid post. Not every team has a really good solid post player. So Taryn Hermanson can take advantage of that. And between those two and a little bit of depth, I think they're going to be solid. And then this Jefferson team had hardly any seniors on it last year. So, you start with Brinley Altenberg, who skill-wise, like unmatched, and she's really improved her shooting. She's really improved as a leader. And then you get some players around her that can really help support that cast. And I think Jefferson becomes a top 5 type of team too.
Ryan, any how about the West River AA schools? Anyone to watch out there that you're tracking?
App City Stevens obviously graduated Miss Basketball last year with Talia Porter. She was really the headliner out there, and I know that they got a young player coming up.
Allie Peterson, I think.
Yeah, she's a young up and comer. So she's kind of a name and a player we're gonna have to kind of keep an eye on out there. But like Jason said, Lauren Burkhart, we should also mention, going to South Dakota State, has committed to South Dakota State. Her sister played there, and she obviously comes from good basketball lineage with her parents both playing at Northern. So she's certainly a player to keep an eye on, Lauren Burkhart.
If you're looking for a team that could really, really be building, it's Mitchell too. They've got a really good young group with Nia Talley, and CeCe Morgan got playing time as a 7th grader last year. And then you pair her with Addie Simpson, who's been on the court for the last 3 years, is really a solid shooter from the outside. I like what David Brooks does too, about really making it about defense first. And I think Mitchell could be a contender this year as well. We'll see how those middle schoolers grow up and play on the court this year.
Yeah, we should also mention that the 2 girls you mentioned, CeCe Morgan and Talley, they're already getting college offers, and they're 8th graders. So goes to show you the caliber of players that Mitchell girls have coming up.
Implies, guys, back in that rivalry that I mentioned earlier with Mitchell and Washington, CeCe and her brother Steele were hanging around Dad and doing that, and now they're off doing their own thing. And I know Wes is an assistant with Coach Brooks, Wes Morgan. So don't count out Mitchell either with what they have coming back, and they'll certainly be solid with their fundamentals.
You mentioned West River a little bit too, Todd, and one of the players we have to watch is Leah Landry out of Rapid City Central. She's another one who can just light it up. I don't know how the team will be overall. And then Spearfish had a really good year last year, but they did lose some real key seniors, so we'll see how they bounce back.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to follow, and that O'Gorman's storyline and AA girls all season. And who knows, Ryan, maybe December 11th. They'll give you guys less to talk about if Brandon Valley can pull that game off. But circle that one on your calendar, South Dakota fans. December 11th, Brandon Valley at O'Gorman girls. So that's going to be fun to follow. Well, listen, we can't thank Jason and Ryan, you guys, enough for devoting time out of your schedules to join us. Before we wrap up, I want you to talk about your content. How can South Dakota basketball fans follow you, and what are your plans for the upcoming year at both SDPB Sports and 605 Sports? First with you, Jason, how can fans follow your work?
Yeah, we'll be kind of continuing what we did in the football season with a weekly show in the middle of the week to kind of get people primed up for what's coming up on the weekend, some of the top players, some of the top matchups to watch up for. So we'll be doing that. It's called Game Time. It'll actually be not only on YouTube and all the SDPB channels, but it'll be on TV as well. And Wednesday at 10 p.m. on SDPB throughout the state. So we're really psyched about that.
Right. Ryan?
And yep, you can find us on 605sports.com. We have a Twitter, Facebook, all the social media outlets. And we have a staff of about 4 of us. Matt Gade's out in Rapid City, so we got the West River covered. I live in Mitchell, so I kind of got that area covered up right there by the Mitchell area. I love the Corn Palace during the basketball season, as everybody knows. And then my coworker John Akery, he's up in Brookings, so we're kind of scattered around. So we're going to try to have as many coverage of games, features, photo galleries, all that kind of stuff, and maybe throw in some video here and there. So as you guys know, basketball is my favorite time of the year, and we certainly like to provide as much content as we can on our site and the social media platforms and everything. So can't wait for it.
That's great. And there's a reason why in my shout out a couple episodes ago, specifically mentioned both Jason and Ryan for what they do for South Dakota sports, especially at the high school scene. but also in terms of the philosophy of high school, being education-based activities and giving kids a shout out and just being professional in what they do. We got two of the best sitting right in our backyard here in South Dakota. So Jason and Ryan, you guys are awesome. And thanks for the time with us today, previewing the girls.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thanks for having us, guys. Been a big fan of the podcast through the first couple of episodes and everything, and having Jason Sutherland on for a high school, South Dakota high school hoop head like myself. I just love the historical stuff. And I did not know that those dunk highlights of him existed. So shout out to you guys for digging those up and finding those. The only video that I ever saw was the infamous dunk that he had out in Rapid City in the state championship. That's obviously been passed around on YouTube. The highlights of that stuff that you guys were able to dig up and have him on to talk about was great. So shout out to you guys for doing this podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Very much so.
Thank you.
We appreciate you both.
Bleacher Preachers.
Again, a special thank you to Ryan Deal from 605 Sports and Jason Andera from SDPB Sports for joining us today for our South Dakota High School girls basketball season preview. Our Bleacher Preacher segment for today is we want to know from our fans, from our listeners, who are your picks to win the Class AA girls team title, Class A girls team title, and the Class B team title? Let us know your picks to click. Also, we want to know who your predictions are to win the 2026 Miss Basketball Awards. So let us know that. You can email us at stateofhoopspodcast@gmail.com or send us direct messages on Instagram and our X account. So that is our Bleacher Preacher segment for this episode.
Show out. Shout out.
And it wouldn't be, Nate, an episode of State of Hoops without ending with our show out, shout out segment. And Chow, I'm going to go with Krista Longauger. She is a true freshman who plays for the University of Sioux Falls from Sisseton, South Dakota, a 6'2" post player. Many of our fans and listeners will know Krista's background. She took Sisseton to a state tournament when she was in high school. But listen to this, Nate. In her first ever conference game as a true freshman, playing for USF, they played Southwest Minnesota State. In 20 minutes of action, she scored 25 points and had 11 boards. And so she is emerging as a very immediate impact player for Travis Trapagan's Cougars. And one thing about Trap, you and I know him well. He's a friend of ours. He's done a nice job getting some South Dakota girls in his program and developing them. So shout out to Krista. Keep up the great work. South Dakotans are proud of you. And we always love it when South Dakota players go to South Dakota colleges and become productive college players.
Krista, keep up the great work. What a line in 20 minutes of play. And I think that's a lot of credit because that Northern Sun Conference is very, very good. And a lot of great players are playing in that conference as well. So shout out to Krista and also shout out to Coach Trapp. Those of you that don't know, Trapp was an amateur basketball teammate of Schlekeway back in the 2000s. Had a lot of fun playing amateur basketball, and Trapp was known to shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes during that time. So Trapp's a great guy, and best of luck to the Cougars this season.
Well, thank you again to Jason Andera from SDPB Sports and Ryan Deal from 605 Sports for joining us today to tip off the South Dakota high school girls basketball season. They were excellent, Nate, as we knew they would be.
Yeah, great conversation and great insight into all classes of basketball with B and Class B, Class A, Class AA, and getting their take on teams to watch and players to watch. And now it's time. Let's throw up the ball and let's see this season unfold.
Yeah, and just a reminder, you can subscribe to this podcast as we wrap up here on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And you can follow us on social media, YouTube, X, and Instagram. Next week, we plan on doing the same thing and having a boys high school season preview. So we're excited about that. Until next time, this is State of Hoops podcast co-host Todd Schlekeway with fellow co-host Nate Malchow, yours in hoops. Have a great day.